Hello, everyone, and we are in the second last session of the podcast launch event. It's been a great journey so far, and I hope I'm quite audible to all of you all. The forthcoming session, that's the current session, is on what is shade A2, and I'm going to be inviting Dr. Alessandro right now. So, hello, Dr. Alessandro, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. Had some small issues with my computer now, but now everything is ready to go.
No problem. No problem. So, for those of you all who do not know Dr. Alessandro, I'll start off with a small introduction uh, about Dr. Alessandro. So, Dr. Alessandro is from Zurich, Switzerland, and he is into private practice since 1990. He's a CEREC instructor at the Zurich Dental School. He conducts various international courses, lectures, and has publications on CAD/CAM, digital technologies, and he's also the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry, that's published by Quintessence, EAED active member, and Bio-Emulation Mentor. He is also an ITI Fellow and a speaker. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Alessandro. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Well, long list of introduction. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. We had the pleasure to talk to each other already last week, and best greetings from Switzerland to India.
It's awesome to have you. So, for the people who don't know, I've already recorded a podcast session with Dr. Alessandro, and it was amazing talking to him. He is a very experienced practitioner, and he has a lot of knowledge on dental photography and the latest technologies. And he's a tech geek, and I totally love that. So he is a Nikon user. I am a Canon user, but we gel along pretty well. Yeah, that's the story. But he's awesome, and he has a beautiful channel called the Dentist. Sorry, he has a good channel called Dentist Camera on Instagram, which has amazing posts on dental photography, and I believe each and every one of us should check it out because apart from the routine dental photography that he posts a lot of educational stuff. He loves to teach, and it's reflected in all his Instagram posts. So it's so nice to have a channel like that, and it's so nice to have a person like you who's doing it selflessly, and everything is there over there. It's got settings, it's got about cameras, lenses, everything is there. So do check out this channel called as Dentist Camera. So thank you so much once again to be on the show, Dr. Alessandro.
Yes, let's start.
Let's
Yeah.
start.
So
Right. Right. So today's topic is what is shade A2. It's such an interesting title. I wanted to know what is the story behind it. Like, how did you select this particular name for a topic? You could have probably named it something simpler, like uh, how to choose color, hue, value, chroma, something more technical. But there's a very offbeat title. What is shade A2? So, what is the story behind this title?
yeah, the story behind I was invited several years ago by the Society of Color and Appearance in Dentistry, an American society, to talk about shades. And so I was struggling what to talk about: shade taking, shade selection, shade communication, and then one thing that is highly discussed is what is the favorite shade every dentist is using. So I call that the average dentist is an A3 dentist. Whenever he selects a shade, he ends up with the same shade tab, holding against the teeth of a patient and then saying, well, this is the best match. And if you really look into this topic, you see that even though a shade tab has a certain name, or A3 or A2, it's not that different if you compare different products, different things. And so this made me to think about and to create a presentation showing some aspects what this color is all about.
It's amazing. So I used to think everybody in India only does that A3 thing, but it's good to know that everybody else does it as well. So I used to think that the dentists in India, in my country, they are the ones who keep on doing A3. Like I have also done it quite a few times, but I did not know that worldwide is the same situation. So why is it like that? Why is it like always A3 or 2M2? I mean, is it because people do not have shade guides? But I'm sure everybody has shade guides.
Yeah, it's
This
because we
is
are most, let's say that not only dentists, people in general are lazy people, and want to keep things simple and reproducible, and they want to delegate things. So 80% of the materials that are sold worldwide, composite ceramics, have like a standard shade. Well, you can call it A3 or A2 or whatever. We will maybe start discuss later what it's all about.
yeah,
But
yeah,
and they want to keep things easy, and
right,
the
right,
also because they don't want to understand what shades and shade communication is all about. So this then gave me the idea, and if you start comparing different products of the same shade, then you see that they are not the same. So
right,
there's a lot of literature on so-called batch inconsistency. So
right,
different products of the same shade look different. Different shade tabs of the same
right,
shade
right,
also don't look the same. So this is a part of a presentation I gave, and you see
yeah,
below the colors of the blocks.
right.
They are supposed to be the same shade, but you
Mm-hmm.
see that they are different. They don't look the
Yeah,
same. So, and we
yeah,
discussed that last week, and I don't know if I'm just going ahead too quickly. The same shade is perceived in a different way in relation to where you are on the planet. So there are
okay,
cultural differences. So Asian people love more yellowish colors. So
right,
the Asian A2 has a yellow touch. The
right.
European A2 has a reddish, a warmer touch, and the
Mm-hmm.
American A2 is lighter, is whiter. And also people who decide or produce a shade, they
Mm-hmm.
do it like, and it's the same also in the camera industry. An
Right,
engineer defines how the picture that comes out of the camera looks like. So, what is
mm-hmm.
neutral? What is vivid color? So, what is A2? An engineer says, "Look, I have a shade tab. I will mix something that looks like this, and then they reproduce it." So that's why
Mm-hmm.
the classic shade guide
Right,
has no is not a standard. It's something that is approximately something. You can try to reproduce it. You can try to get close to it, but you cannot reproduce it consistently because there's no real definition behind it.
right, right. But we do have a body that is there that's regulating these shades, right? In place, like an
Yes,
international
but
organization.
yeah, yeah, no. When you go into the history of shade communication, then also what we are applying in dentistry is this so-called LAB
Yeah.
protocol, which was standardized in the late 1970s by a French organization. So a lot of rules on what is 1 kilogram, what is 1 liter, and so on. These
Yeah.
are based in Paris or in London or in some of these old cities. So there's a center of international. So it's called CIE, Centre International d'Éclairage, and they have established this LAB standard. It has been established several times. So the last time it was in 1978 when they defined what is LAB. So L being the lightness, A the redness, and B the greenness of a shade. And we use that also in dentistry now to communicate or to make a more scientific interpretation of what shades are about.
Right. So what you are saying is that although all the companies are trying to keep the shades similar, but still there are differences because it is similar to how cameras are. So if Canon reproduces color in a particular way, it does not mean that Nikon is also going to reproduce in the same way. For example, even in the phones, if I look at a picture on a Samsung phone, it's not going to look the same on an iPhone. Although they are trying their best to keep it similar, but that standardization has still not been achieved. So we have a body in place for that, but it's still not working out. We are almost there, but it's still going to take some time. That's awesome.
Yeah, but at the end, I tell people also in my photography courses, don't look too much at the monitors and how your images look there.
Yeah,
So the best thing or the best tool, if we go quickly into the photography part, is I check my colors on the monitor of my camera. And there, the most important thing you have to check is the whiteness of the teeth. Because coming back to shades, what the human brain can do very good is compare lightness values. So that's
yeah,
why
yeah,
the latest generation of shade tabs, the 3D shade guide from Vita, they have even changed it and made a so-called linear guide out of it. This
linear.
means the only thing we are looking at is the value. And based on the value, because we are better in comparing values, you select one of these value tabs. And if
Yeah,
you have found the best match, it's not only the value, but it's also the chroma and the hue that is very close to this. So this is the concept behind new shade taking or shade communication is 80% is value and only the rest is then chroma, hue, and optical properties of a tooth which cannot be measured,
yeah,
or it's very hard to measure these optical properties. And that's why part of the shade matching protocol will be for a long time also high quality photography to communicate the optical part or the optical properties to be reproduced by the lab or by yourself.
right. So since we are talking about shade, and we are almost going to end up in photography by the end of the session, I believe. But A, B, C, and D, they all signify different colors, right? So you are saying that there is an ethnic difference with respect to the cultural differences. For example, in the Asians, like you said, there's more of yellow, and in the Western countries there are different colors. That's interesting to know. Also, one more thing, I wanted to ask, what is the shade guide that's most used in your country? Like, are they still using classic, 3D, or linear?
Basically, most of the shade guides are in the drawers of the dental
Okay.
offices.
Okay.
I
They all
think
are.
I think in my office I have 10 shade guides. I've worked for many years only with the 3D shade guides because the classical for me is not a shade guide. It's just
Okay.
something that is has no real concept. It started, but if you really look scientifically into the color concept or color reproduction concepts, then you have to go to something different that really reproduces the area or the shades teeth have. And we have found that the classic shade guide is quite off what teeth colors are all about. So that's why at the end, the A3 is the best shade tab of the Vita Classic because it comes closest to natural tooth shades. And many of the shades that are in the classic shade guides are quite off what nature is looking.
Right, right. So, what you're basically saying is we are not supposed to use classic as much as possible. We need to shift to 3D and linear. But the ironical part is the composite. Okay, so I'm just shifting from ceramics to composites now directly. But the composites are still named as A2, A3. So, is there a classification in composites which is different from ceramics? Are they trying to be same, or like how is it?
Basically, the composite companies have found a good solution to the problem. Most of them are now going to one shade concepts. So start with the average shade, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it Apollo or Jupiter or Mars or whatever. So it's the universal shade, which is something that we can say covers 80% of what teeth are all about. The extreme light and the extreme dark teeth are off this one shade for sure. And then we only work with the chroma. So then you have many companies now have just one shade and 5 or 6 different chromas. So then you have a large variety of shades you can reproduce, and you add just two enamel shades. So a light shade being young enamel, and a darker enamel, which is less transparent, which is the adult or old enamel. And this combination allows you to reproduce almost all shades in a way that the patient accepts, that it looks good. It's not, maybe not always perfect, but the advantage, modern composites allow also a better light transmission, and so they have like a chameleon effect, so they integrate much better into the
Right.
surroundings.
So, are you leading this talk to a point where you are saying that multi-layering is a better technique than monolithic?
Yeah, look, this is then we have to go back to what materials. So
Yeah.
the tendency of dental materials is going to monolithic ceramics, because when you have monolithic ceramics, you have less risk of chipping, less risk of fracture, because the material quality is better. And in composite, there's the concepts are of less layering. So the easiest thing is you have a core. Maybe you have to do 2 or 3 layers because the volume is too big. But at the end, it's a 2-layer concept. So a dentin core, an enamel shell outside when you were talking about composite. And in the ceramic, there's a development of monolithic materials that are already pre-layered. So they try to reproduce the transition of the darker inside of a tooth to the lighter, more transparent outside of a tooth.
Right, right. But what you're saying is, out of everything, it's 80% of it is about selecting the right value. That means the darkness or the brightness. So, do you follow a particular protocol in selecting your shade with respect to documenting it? For example, do you first take a monochromatic picture and then you go about selecting the color? What is your protocol?
And again, depending on what material I work with. When I go for composite and I'm not sure, then the best way or one of the easiest ways to use cross-polarized photography.
Yeah.
Cross-polarized photography means I take a picture with a special filter that eliminates all reflections from the
Mm.
surface. So then you can put, then you can put, then you can put yes, like this, perfect. Then you can put like small composite parts on the tooth, take a picture, and then you immediately see the optical integration of the material to the tooth surface. What you don't see when you look with your naked eye. If you put composite on top of the tooth surface, you don't see if it's a good match or not, because you should light cure it before and everything to see the final shade of the composite. But if you do it with the cross-polarized image, you can like have a preview of what your material will look like integrated into the tooth. And so this is something that I really recommend use in your office. You can also go for what you see on the right bottom slide, this real light from AD Dent. They're now coming up with a new device that has even the fluorescence integrated, so that the form will change a little bit to be more oval, that it covers better the mouth. And then you can put this in front and then have all what you see on this picture, not as photograph, but as real image. And this is enough.
Right,
You don't have to take pictures of all this, but you have to
right.
see it to
Mm-hmm.
select the good material for your restorations.
Right, right. So you're talking about fluorescence as well. So how
Fluorescence is
important is fluorescence in the materials, in the shade?
okay. Fluorescence is something that we have when we that happens with teeth. So it could be different, but unfortunately, I don't know, nature made our teeth fluorescent. The
Mm-hmm.
fluorescence has no real impact on the appearance. So there's a lot of research if there's fluorescence or is not. If you look at the restoration in daylight, where you
Mm-hmm.
don't see, where there's no fluorescence evident or visible, you don't see any
Yeah,
difference.
yeah.
But in special conditions, and today
Mm-hmm.
also in the so-called near UV light, so UV light is invisible, but the near UV light 405 nanometer is visible and also creates this effect. And
Right.
these lights are more used now in not only in clubs, but in cinemas, in train
Mm-hmm.
stations, in shopping centers. So it's something that we have to deal with, this
Right.
effect. But again, you see also on these slides, different materials have different fluorescence. You try to also take a look at this when you work with materials, especially zirconia, where there is no built-in fluorescence. Certain lithium disilicate materials don't have fluorescence. Certain composite materials don't have fluorescence. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to check. But also here, like with the shade guide or other things, a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
talking about this, but if you ask
Yeah.
dentists, they don't check it. But I really highly recommend to take a look, or at least if you work with indirect materials, talk to your lab technician and ask him, did you check or do you know if the material you're using for my restoration has fluorescence, yes or no?
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's difficult, I believe, no? Because there is a possibility that even the lab might not be knowing it. Uh, how is it in your country?
Again, a lot of people is talking about. If you ask them, they are aware about, but they don't check it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think they wait until the patient comes back to the office telling him, "Oh, I was in my," or younger patients, "I was in a club and my colleagues
Mm-hmm.
told me, what about one tooth is missing? What happened?" And say, "No, I did a new crown with my dentist." So then he comes back to the office asking you, "Doctor, what's the problem with my tooth?" But again, it would be better if you address these issues before, and it's very easy when you know what materials you want to use with your patients, being
Mm-hmm.
composites or ceramics. If they are indirect ceramics, ask your lab technician if he knows about this. If he doesn't know,
Right.
you have to check. If everybody in the workflow knows about the properties of the materials, then there will be no problems also with fluorescence or other things.
Right. So what all we have seen so far is that classic shade guide is not recommended anymore. We need to switch to 3D shade guides and linear shade guide, and directly jumping to color might not be a great thing to do because 80% of the accuracy depends upon the value selection. So it's at this point that the 3D shade guide and the linear shade guides are more effective. In fact, I've seen all of them, but I feel the linear shade guide has made everything so much more easier. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's much more faster and much more organized as compared to the 3D in my opinion. But the key over here is again not to keep on looking at the shade tab because we might develop a color fatigue. And if we are doing an indirect restoration, we have to check in for different optical properties. For example, how fluorescent the natural tooth is. And it becomes more and more important to know all this, especially when we are doing a single replacement or a single laminate and stuff other rather than a 4 unit or a 6 unit, because we don't want that patient to look odd when he goes to a disco or a pub and that tooth particularly stands out like the way you are seeing. It's going to be really awkward. So apart from all this, it's very important for us to also know what's the profession of our patient. For example, I did a case just recently. I finished a case and he was a DJ, and it's because I knew the background. I have to take into account all these different aspects as well. That's really interesting to know. Right.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to know what is your opinion on the digital systems that are there in the market, especially the Easy Shade that has been there since quite some time by Vita.
Okay, I was 17 years ago in 2003. I bought all digital shade taking systems that were available on the market. I had some issues. They gave me some special price, but I had to invest a lot of money because I wanted to try them out. So, being a tech geek, as you mentioned in the introduction, I was keen to learn how can this machine help us to become better in shade communication and shade taking. And at the end, I have to tell you, the only device that survived all the years is the Easy Shade system, because from the beginning it was a very simple thing, focusing also on giving the dentist some hints and not trying to map the whole tooth and give too much information, which almost or in many situations led to more confusion than solution to the problem. So if we and the thing, I use the easy shade mostly to check different teeth because it's very quick. So you go over and check different teeth. If you look at the teeth, and sometimes you see, okay, the front teeth look brighter, the canines look a little bit darker, and the other teeth are even more dark. Then you go and check the front tooth, check the canine, check a premolar, check the lowers, and see if the value of these teeth is very close or completely different. If it's completely different, so each tooth has a different color, you could even go and say to the patient, it's your choice what you want for the next crown, because every tooth has a different shade. So there's no real shade match without redoing all your old restorations. So basically, this is a tool that helps me in combination with the visual shade taking and the photography. If we go further, then I mentioned last week to you, then we have to go to protocols like the ELAB protocol, developed by the Bio-Emulation group, let's say by Sasha Hein, Panos Batzos, and Javier Tapia. And they're going further into this, using gray cards as a reference to calibrate the whole system, and then trying to standardize shade communication and helping especially the lab to create like recipes on how to stratify to reproduce a certain shade with different materials. Because again, this comes back to the beginning, because there's no A2. It doesn't make sense to tell somebody, this is A2, you just reproduce it. And if you tell this, how? No way. So if you want to reproduce, you have to tell somebody, look, you have to mix this amount of this powder with that amount of that powder, and then you create the shade that comes the closest to what you are looking for.
Right. So, in a nutshell, you are saying that the easy shade is used as an adjunct for your process. It's not like a complete thing. It's just an addition to the visual technique that is your primary thing. So this easy shade guide, the easy shade, which is the digital one, it helps you with deciding, but ultimately it's your choice. It's not something that we completely depend upon. And another thing that I noted down was you are not checking only the adjacent tooth. You're checking multiple teeth, even though you might be replacing just one prosthesis. If is that right?
Yes, because you need to have an overview. The first thing is always the first impression. Also, when you do a try-in, so put the crown in, put the veneer in, look at it, and if the first impression is positive, then go. If the first impression leaves a little uncertainty, then something's wrong. It's like if you take a look at your X-ray. An experienced doctor looks at an X-ray, and if in 5 seconds you're not sure if this is a cavity you want to drill, then don't drill it. Then say, okay, we will watch this and take a look in 1 year or 2 years. So the same with the shade match. What you see in the first 5 seconds, if you like it, then it's good. If you don't like it, then you might go and measure and compare. But for me, also, when I start something, take an overall view, and viewing, maybe even put the retractors in and look what you see when you're in front of the patient. And if it looks uniform, then it's good. And if you see, wow, this looks like a carousel with I don't know how many pictures and different styles and different colors, then you might go and say, I want to check the lightest one, measure the lightest one, measure the darkest one, measure something in between, and then see, wow, they are closer than I thought, or they are even more apart than I thought.
Right, right. And how do you go about selecting? Do you select different zones in a tooth, like cervical, middle, and incisal separately, always?
So the base shade of a tooth is always in the upper third. So that's where it's close to
Mm-hmm.
the gingiva. There, it's where it's the thickest. So you have the largest amount of dentin, which gives the base shade of a tooth. And then on top
Right.
you have the enamel. The more you come to the incisal part, the more you are getting less shades, but more optical effects, depending of the age of the tooth.
Right. Right. So since there's more wear and tear and stuff later on, it becomes different. And for young patients, it's a completely different thing. That's so true. Uh, we have seen that a lot of like I have seen. I'm not really sure about you, but a lot of people edit the pictures very badly. Like they increase the contrast a lot, and then they try to understand what's going on with the colors. How okay are you with that particular technique? Because for me, it does not make any sense. Have you seen something like that? Like they increase the contrast a lot, it looks completely weird, and then they try to decide something out of it. I could never understand the concept.
No, the concept is easy. This is called solarization effect, and they want to show like to look inside the tooth. So working with the contrast or high contrast is trying to visualize mamelons and all this. So because working with the contrast gives you only uh, ideas of where are more transparent parts and more opaque parts. So basically, but if you again, if coming back, if you take a picture with cross-polarized filters, you get the same effect of
Right.
looking inside the tooth without playing too much with the contrast and having the benefit of seeing it in a more natural way. Otherwise, what I realized when overdoing this with the contrast, you create what you also see on not only on social media but also on lectures, the style of crowns and veneers that have too much transparencies at the wrong positions, and then the tooth looks artificial because they create a transparent part that is not a natural reproduction. So it's too intense, often a very opaque in upper part of the tooth, and then all of a sudden it
Yeah.
changes in
Yeah.
complete
Yeah.
translucency. And
Yeah.
this is not what nature is doing. It can be, but it's not what nature normally does, and especially not in patients that are not 20 anymore. So you have
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
careful
Yeah.
to do too much.
Yeah. That's so
Like
true.
the thing I showed you, this post on Instagram with the guy doing the retouching of the image
Yeah. Yeah.
and eliminating the transparency of the teeth. So it looks that in the fashion world, the photographers, if they post process images, they make the teeth opaque white. They don't want any transparencies or translucencies.
Right. So this is what
Yes.
Dr. Alessandro is talking about. So this is his channels for people who want to know what is it called on Instagram. It's called dentist.camera.
And you
And
see
this is
here
what.
the where they change the appearance of the teeth completely. So as a
Right.
dentist, it's like hurting me if I see that. When they like, this is like overdoing. You see nice
Yeah.
teeth and now whack, they're white. So this is what fashion photography is all about. and
Right. Right.
and and people also, if they
Right.
come to,
Right.
to your offices, often they ask then for these white opaque teeth. They prefer the white opaque thing than the natural looking teeth.
So true. Yeah, that's so true. So I'm just going through your channel once to show it to our audience. So this is Dr. Alessandro's channel. It's called dentist.camera. It's the Instagram handle, and he has, look at the number of followers over here. That's around 50,000 followers. That's just because his content is so really good, and it covers almost everything that you need to know about dental photography, about cross polarization, about glamour, and also about the settings. You can see there are a lot of posts on the settings, fluorescence, cross polarization. So it's one of the rare Instagram handles that I see which are not only propagating glamour photography but also telling constantly that glamour photography, yes, it's a trend, but it's more important for us to know that documentation protocols are more important. So glamour can take us places, yes, but protocols is something that what we really need to know. So Dr. Alessandro teaches a lot about dental photography, and he has a lot of interesting carousels. You can see like flyers like these, in which he has a detail. So you just have to keep on scrolling left, and you'll come to know a lot that he has to share with respect to dental photography. So it's a brilliant channel, and I believe each and every one of us should have a look at, should keep a track of that channel. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for that channel. Yeah. Right. So, since I think we must be having a lot of youngsters in the live session, so we are live on YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter. Would you want to explain the concept of a linear shade guide, like how we go about starting the process of shade selection? Because there are a lot of youngsters in the show. And one more thing before you start, we are entering into the last 10 minutes of the session with Dr. Alessandro. So, if you have any questions with respect to shades, with respect to shade tabs, with respect to shade systems, composites or ceramics, please put it across in the comment section so that I can put it across to sir, and then he can take time to answer them. Yes, sir. About the protocol of shade selection with linear shade guide.
Oh, linear shake guide, the protocol is very easy. So they are now even thinking of making it more easy. So you have the linear shade guide basically has a first thing where you have five tabs, and you select one out of these five to get the lightness group. So they have made like five subgroups. So in the first thing, you select one of the subgroups, then you go to the second group type with another five tabs, and you go there, and basically in two steps with twice a value selection, you select the shade. And what Vita now wants to do is to make this just one step. So avoiding, because the packaging of the actual linear guide is very complicated and very expensive to produce. So we were talking about making this easier and easier to use.
Right. Right. So I think it's difficult to explain without the use of slides. So I was just
Yeah,
constantly thinking
but
for
you have
something.
I have sent you the slides where you can show it.
In that PDF is there?
Yes, it's
The
there. But if anybody wants to know more, they can send me a message. I'm happy to share any
right.
information related to this in a personal message, or I can add after the session is finished. I can add some links and comments also to the YouTube channel if you want.
Right, that'll be great. So people can also send us an email. So that's podcast at 32minute.com, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with Dr. Alessandro. Will be more than happy to solve all your questions with linear shade guide. But ultimately, it comes down to the same thing. First thing is that you select the value, and then you go ahead and select the hue and then the chroma. So it's a very simplified process, right? So I'm coming to the last question that I wanted to ask. Are you using Grey Card on a routine basis for shade communication when you're doing a shade communication with your lab?
I'm actually I recommend using gray cards only if you're going to work with the ELAB Prime system, because there it's recommended. It's part of calibrating your camera as communication machine. But on the other hand, if I do my visual thing with the combination of measuring with the easy shade, comparing with the linear guide, and adding a digital photograph to communicate texture, form, and optical effects, I think this for most dentists is enough. If we go to the next level, this is integrating gray cards and calibrating your systems. But my experience for a lot of dentists today, this is too complex. I know that the ELAB Prime system is evolving and they are trying to get easier. easier to use, and more accessible to everybody. And I'm looking forward to see what's coming up next with this system or this protocol. But today I would recommend take out the easy the linear guide of the drawer. Don't put it there. Use it. Buy something. If you want to invest a little bit more, then go for this polarized filter. You can find them also at the Bio-Emulation group website, elab. I don't know if it's elab.com, but I can share the link. Later. Or you go for this handheld thing from EAED Dent, this real light,
Yeah.
and there they promised me to come up this year, but cause due to the corona crisis, a lot of products are delayed. So buy this handheld thing where you have polarization, fluorescence, and everything built in to check your shades, to check the integration of your composite materials directly at the patient.
Right. So I have a couple of questions from the audience. I'm just going to show it across. If you can try and answer them.
So I answered this. If the best on the market is the polarized system available, I sent you also the slide. It's also it's available for different flash systems. So I know that there are also other people or other groups have developed kind of these polarized filters, but this is the one I'm using, and I can recommend using.
Right. I will just put that slide across so that they can see what you are talking about. So I'm just going to share my screen sharing so they can see it. Yeah.
Yes,
So
here.
your
Yeah.
teacher is talking about this one.
Yes.
Polarized. But I think it's pretty expensive for, right? It's how do you know the cost, approximate cost of this?
It depends. It depends on the system. So I think it's 300-400. But but for me, a good investment. You
Right.
know, a lot of people are always telling, "Oh, this is too expensive. That is too expensive." But at the end, if this helps you, if these systems help you to avoid reproduction of 1 or 2 crowns, they already paid off.
Right, right. And I think it's there for twin flash as well, right? This is working
Yes,
for ring
yes.
flash, but they have it for twin
It's
flash
they're
also.
for ring flash and also for twin flash, for Canon, for Nikon, for all brands.
Right. And this is the one which you can
This
just
is the one,
visually
the handheld,
use.
the real light, the
Right.
right light. It's called Right Light by EAED Dent, and they're coming up with a new version that has a better form and even integrated the fluorescence detection
Yeah.
part.
This is for the twin flash, I think. This is for
Yes,
the Nikon
this is
twin flash
the
onwards.
fluorized and the polarized. They look basically they look the same for
Okay,
the twin
okay.
flash.
So this is the flow rise.
Yes, but the
Right.
polarized looks optically looks the same.
Yeah, yeah. But are
Different
you
glass.
doing this for every case?
No, I do that if I do front restorations. I
Right, right.
routinely check the fluorescence on the patient. I do like the 3 images: standard flash, polarized flash, fluorescent flash,
Okay,
and
okay.
then you know, and then you know how it looks. But it's
Right,
not that I'm using all this on every patient, depending
right,
on what
right.
you plan to do, on the extent of the planned work. The most important thing is to take pictures before you start something. I have a
Right,
lot of initial images of my patients, but I don't have that many pictures of the final thing, because
right,
the initial picture can never be reproduced.
right, right. Also, I wanted to ask, would you recommend a DIY system? For example, maybe if they can buy a linear polarizing film from Amazon and just put it on the flash and the lens, because I've seen a lot of students doing that as well.
There are many ways there. You can do that.
Yeah.
I'm somebody, I want things look good, be professional. It's like
Yeah.
people using paper as
Yeah. Yeah. Diffusers,
bouncers, as diffusers.
bouncers.
yeah, it works, everything works, but at the end, you have to see yourself, is it practicable? These do-it-yourself things often break easier, so you have
Right.
to replace them, or yeah. So that's why I prefer to invest a little bit money and get something that is professionally done and lasts longer, and I know about the quality, and I know that the results I'm getting are proven. It's not
Right.
something that I think it looks like, but I don't really know if it's really the way it should be.
Right. So there are a lot of questions, but I think I'll just ask this last one. What are the journals that you would recommend to follow for dental photography and shade related topics?
Okay,
References.
if you want to showcase, if you want to see what dental photography the results are, then you have to go for the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry. That I'm the proud editor in chief of this journal. And if you want to see what photography, the results of dental photography, then you have to go for that. There's no real dental photography journal out there. In many journals they are talking about, because at the end we will come up with a special issue on dental photography with the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry next year. We did a special issue on dental photography in German with the German Quintessence. This will be translated. So if somebody asks for specific information, so what I can recommend is, again, doing a little bit of personal advertisement. You can go to my website, dentist.camera, where I really have tried, or I'm still trying to collect as much information as possible on dental photography. There you can even read books online. You can read articles online. I'm trying to collect as much information. It's not the Instagram; it's the website. The website offers
Right.
a lot of it's dentist.camera. It's very easy to find. So I try to give all my projects the same name, so that people can find it more easily. And there's a platform where you really find almost all information you want on photography. What I have to admit, I created like a community. So if you want to access everything, you need to be a member of the community. But it's a very small fee you pay, and I have to tell you, there are so many things to come that we will offer to the members of this community, that the $50 you have to pay is really almost nothing. So we are working on a photography app. I'm really working on creating more information. We have even a virtual gallery. Maybe we can meet next time. I'm trying now
For the
to
reference.
organize some small meetings in my virtual gallery, which is, by the way, open to members already now. So I know that you are a member of dentist.camera, so we can have a private tour through the gallery if you want, and it's my pleasure to welcome as many as you and discuss and share our knowledge with as many people as possible around the globe.
Right. So that answers almost everything that we wanted to know about the shades and also dental photography. Thank you so much for joining us for the show. It was such a pleasure and honor to have you on the penultimate episode of the 32-minute podcast launch event. It's such an honor.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. And keep up the good work. It's really great what you're doing, and don't give up, because I know that a lot of similar projects have been started, and they ended up because people were well, it was too much for them. So I wish you the power you need to keep up the good work. And if you need any help, I'm here,
Sure.
and we will meet in. And maybe, or I hope so, one day we will also meet in person
Yeah, sure.
when all this is over. Then you have to come to
Right.
Europe, or I come to India.
More than welcome. So for the people who want to connect with Dr. Alessandro, I've put the email on the chat as well as on the screen. You can take a screenshot. It's devigus at dentist.ch. You can connect with Dr. Alessandro directly as well. Thank you so much for joining in. And our next session, which is the final session of the podcast launch event, will begin at 7 o'clock Indian Standard Time. Thank you so much, one and all. And thank you so much, Dr. Alessandro. I'll be looking forward to see you in person very soon. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.